All right, what's going on, guys? You want to know the one thing that makes my heart throb more than anything else? It's closing deals. Yep, I'm talking about being a stone cold closer. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to get laydowns, how to get people just giving you their land, just blowing you away with, oh my gosh, I'm just getting these deals. They're falling from the sky. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And it has nothing to do with fancy scripts or fancy objection handling tactics. What it has to do is with the root, with what really matters. It's the psychology of the people that you're talking to. What you're going to watch in this video is a training that I did with some of our members in the land flipping system. This was a weekly group call that I run every single week where I did a live role play with a client, and then I broke down everything that they need to understand to take it to the next level. And what you're going to see in this video, I'm going to be honest with you. You're not going to find this level of sales training anywhere else in the land space, because this is stuff that I learned from parallel industries, things that are way harder. I've done over 6 million sales in the last 4 years. And I've done that because, well, I've learned how to do it. And so I've taken all the knowledge that I've accumulated and I put it into the land business. Okay. That's why this is so important. Now, I do need to share, look, you don't need to be the world's best salesperson to get land deals. It's pretty freaking easy to close a land deal. Okay. However, if you can take even a quarter of some of the things that I'm going to share, you will do tremendously better than your competition. Because again, right now, there's like 3,000 people around the entire nation doing this. And a lot of people that have built out teams, they're having VAs make the calls from overseas that can barely speak English. So as long as you can speak English, you can close deals. And if you can take a little bit of what you're about to learn in this video, you're going to close a lot of deals. So strap in. This is going to be a good one.
Here's what I would focus on. There's two things. So then this is really important for everyone. And by the way, you asked really good questions from some of the stuff that we had talked about on Slack, like you pre-framed them. It was really good. When you ask someone why they want to sell, here's what you have to understand about the psychology of someone. So do you know the awareness levels in marketing? Do you know what that means? You ever heard of anything like that?
No.
All right. So basically, there's this idea that there's this starting point and this end point, okay? And at the starting point, someone is totally unaware. They don't know they have a problem. They don't know that there's a solution to the problem. They don't know about your product and service, okay? As you move along, they start to become more aware in these different factors. Example, someone starts off, they have no idea that they have a problem, right? That's most people in a market for anything that you sell or do, okay? Then a level up is, I have a problem, okay? So an example of this guy's problem, we don't know yet, but it could be something like, I need money to pay for surgery on my shoulder. That is the problem. I need money. Okay. Now, when you send a letter, you become solution aware. Okay. Meaning this could be a possible solution to my problem. Someone sent me a letter offering me money. That is a solution to my problem. And then when you talk to him, you let him know what you do. Now he is product aware. He's aware of what you do. And to get someone to, whether you're selling a product or in our case, we're buying stuff, to get them to that final point, they have to move along that journey. All right. But when they first come to you and they call you, they're a little cold. They're not 100% sure. They haven't made that commitment that they're going to sell to you right now. They don't want to talk to you, know who you are, right? So you have to meet customers where they're at. If you say something like, well, what makes you want to sell right now? He's not there yet. He's still weighing out his options.
Right.
Because he might have an option of, well, I could get a loan to pay for that, surgery that I got, or I could do this. So you have to meet them where they're at with your language. And what I mean by that is a better way to say that would be, what's got you possibly considering selling now? What is different about that compared to how you said?
Well, you now you painted the picture. So in my head, this is what I'm thinking is now there's that possibility. You put it into my mind that, okay, there's a possibility versus me just saying, hey, what's got you considering selling? Well, you haven't told me you actually consider selling yet. You're just saying, oh, I got your offer letter. And so now I'm just talking to you. But now you said that word. Now the word is like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I am possibly thinking about selling this property. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just,
Yes.
That's what I
so
think.
psychologically, like you're meeting the customer where they're at, right? Because he's at a stage right now where he's considering selling, maybe, possibly. He's unsure, right? And so in order to meet them where they're at, You got to match the language. Whereas when you say something like, well, what makes you want to sell right now? They're not there yet. That would be the
Right.
equivalent of going on a date with someone and being like, after the first date, you ready to get married? You're like, I'm not ready yet. I need more time. Right? Whereas if you said, hey, this was fun, would you be opposed to getting some ice cream later? Like, yeah, that'd be fun.
Right.
You see that? Right?
Right.
Um, Roger, yes, there is a lot of psychology,
Yes, it really is. And
but
that's, yeah.
it's the most important stuff. And I'll be honest with you, you guys don't need to be a freaking tenth of this till I close deals. Like, listen, if you could talk to a rock, you can close a land deal. They're not that hard. But if you want to crush it, not just in land, but just in everything else you do, like take away this stuff. It's really freaking important. So meet them where they're at, okay? And then the next thing that I would say is that you got to understand what he wants, like the money.
Right.
Because he told you, well, you know, if the deal's real, like price is right. Like, well, how much does he want? If you don't know where you're trying to go, you're not going to get there. And so what I mean by that is like, we're trying to get to the end to close the deal. We need to know how much they want. We need to have anchors, things that we can work off of that are tangible. But if someone just says they want more money, how much more do they want? I don't know what's going on. It's really
Right.
hard to negotiate if you don't know what you're negotiating for. Okay.
Right.
So all you have to do if that happens is literally just ask, hey, I know that you mentioned, you know, you're looking for the best price. I guess like what specifically are you looking for on this thing? Get a number. And then if they're vague, then you go in. If they're like, well, I just want to get as much money as possible, I'll be like, cool, totally understand. Most people have that same feeling. Listen, I want to respect your time as well as my time, and I don't even know if what you're going to ask for is even possible. So tell me what you're looking for. That way I can go back to my team to see if it's something that's even remotely in our wheelhouse of what we could do. What specifically are you hoping you can get for this thing? Always get a number.
Always.
Always. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper and then we'll get things wrapped up. When you start to negotiate, you always start lower than where you want to go. So let's say he wants 100, okay? And you want it locked up at 70. Offer him 60, right?
Of course.
Well, some people don't do that because what they think is like, a lot of people what they do is they'll be like let's say, I'll give you a better example. Let's say that you could do 100, but you'd like to get it at 70, right? But you could do 100. Some people will be like, all right, we're back to team, we can do 100. Never works out the way that you want. They always negotiate more. Then they're like, oh, I need to think about it. And you're like, you need to think about it? I just gave you the number that you want. And I know that
Right.
might not make sense, but the reason that people do that is it feels too easy. And what they're realizing and thinking is like, well, shit, if all I had to do was just ask him to give me 100 and give me 100, I could just ask him to give me more.
Right.
So they do that. And then the psychology behind it is that when it feels too easy, they get skeptical. They need to think about it. And they pull away. I don't know. And then you're like scratching your head. You're like, why would they do that? I just gave them exactly what they wanted. But when you flip the script and you start lower, right? So like, let's say you could do 100 and you're like, we can only do 80 on this thing. You leave room for that negotiation that will inevitably take place, and that gets them involved. And when someone's involved in something, they feel like they have something to lose when they put some effort into it. So if they're in the negotiation with you, mean they're an active participant, right? You come in at 80, like, well, I want 100, and then like they're going back and forth. They're not going to pull out of that because they're involved now. They have something to lose. But if you just give them what they want, they don't have anything to lose because they know they can keep going back to you and just getting more and more and more. Does that make sense?
Right.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You did a great job. All you need to do outside of, I know I gave you like a bunch of stuff. You don't have to retain all that information. Just practice this more and just keep doing it. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Awesome.
No
All right.
problem.
Do you have any questions on what we just talked about?
No, I have absolutely no questions.
Okay.
No.
What is your biggest takeaway?
Thank you, Austin. I think my biggest takeaway on that is I don't need to be nervous.
Yes.
That's number one. Just having a conversation with someone. I could even pretend like it's a friend,
Yes.
you know, and I think just changing my wording and thinking about it more, like you said, from almost like from a psychology standpoint, just a totally different way. Because I'm thinking about it the way that I would, you know what I mean? Like I would answer or I would do things, but I have to think about it in a total different way um, than what I'm used to. I have to think outside of the box, like open my mind and kind of expand on different ways to form these questions or to ask these things, kind of like how I reframe some of this stuff and just like still sit there and just kind of like reframe some of the other things, like the word, like when you said, you know, what's got you possibly, like that word right there, maybe keywords that I need to use
Yep.
to put in place and set things in their mind, like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Okay, she's asking, you know what I mean? Like make them think versus me thinking and overthinking.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That is great. A lot of the stuff that we do, it's more about them realizing something, them saying something themselves than us. I don't remember if you're on the call on Tuesday, but like I said that there's questions that we ask, like it's not because like I need to know, it's because I need them to say it to themselves.
Right. They need to
Okay?
hear it because once they hear themselves say it, then it's like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cements that belief. All right. Awesome work. Roger, you got a question?
Yeah, Max. So my question is, should at that point Joanna should have gotten, say she got off the call, she's going to take it back to the team, see if the underwriters will go for 100,000. So on the second call, come back say, Max, my underwriters just they couldn't go that high. The best they could do was 70,000, right?
Mhm.
Is that how you would have handled that? Just go ahead and say, I don't know what they're going to say, but let me take it back to the underwriters and then handle that on the next call.
Yeah, 100%. You always want to split it up, right? Because something that's important is that you, the more times you see something, you trust it more, the more familiar you get, right? Like, why do we see billboards of like that one guy that we always see? And it's like, oh, that guy, like I know that guy, right? Like there's like these people in Nashville that like buy houses, you see stuff like that. It's familiarity. Familiarity breeds comfort. And so part of that, we can use that in our sales process by doing a 2-call close sequence, where instead of handling everything on that first call, we purposefully don't handle it and make sure that we split it up on that second call.
Right.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned, well, I'm going to say this last thing, and then if anyone's questions, we can hit it. The way that I would negotiate that though is I would not just be like, yeah, I spoke to a team. They can't do 100. We can do 70. Because you have to give a reason, right? The best way to give a reason is to find, and this is why you guys like, you submit your deals to me so I can look, but we do have to be creative sometimes. You find a reason why you couldn't do that number. So I'll give you an example. Maybe it doesn't have well and septic, right? So you need to give a logical reason where the math makes sense as to why you couldn't do it. So let's say it doesn't have well and septic. Hey, we took it back to the team. We really like the property, but we do have a few concerns. That's how you should always start. We really like it, but the problem is that you don't have well and septic, and that's something that we didn't anticipate because a lot of the properties that we're seeing out here, they already have sewer and water installed. Unfortunately, yours doesn't, and we're looking at about $30,000 in additional costs that we originally did not anticipate. So because of that, the most that we could offer you in this thing would be $70,000. Do you see how the math makes sense?
Right. Put something in there and just make it make sense. That makes sense.
Put something, yeah. Instead of just being like you have to give numbers. It makes it tangible for these people.
Right. Yeah. Because then it gives them something to think about too. Like, oh crap, I didn't think about that part. Right.
Correct. And
Yeah.
sometimes this can be tough. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it's a perfect property and there's like nothing you can find. And so you got to think of something and get creative and be like, oh, we got to pull utilities or like put a driveway in or just find something logically where it would make sense. And then obviously like, no, we're not gonna freaking put a sewer in, but someone will eventually, the end buyer. And because of that, our costs have to be offset. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That does make sense.